take a look at these sentence structures. S, V, O, O, V, S. What comes to your mind when you have these sentence structures? Active and passive voice. When you speak of SVO or OVS, what do we mean? S stands for the subject, V stands for the verb, and O stands for the object. When you talk about the subject, in our case, the subject represents the doer of the action. And then the verb is the doing one. And then finally, we have our object. The object, this is something or someone that receives the action. In some other words, we can say the action is being directed to. Now, look at this example. Ahmed kicks the ball. Ahmed kicks the ball. In our case, Ahmed is the subject. Ahmed is the doer of the action. And what is the action? The action is kicks. And what did Ahmed kick? Ahmed kicked the ball. So the ball becomes our object. Our sentence is in active voice. Why? In active voice, more emphasis is given to the subject. And in our case, remember, the subject is Ahmed. When we are changing into passive voice, in passive voice, more emphasis is given to the object. So our sentence in passive voice will be, Ahmed kicks the ball. The ball is kicked by Ahmed. When changing from active voice to passive voice, these are things that we need to put in consideration. The first thing that we put in consideration when changing from active to passive voice, number one, we need to maintain the tense. We need to maintain the tense from active voice. We maintain the sentence to passive voice. Number two, our main verb, we need to change into past participle. This is how we are going to change sentences from active voice to passive voice. Remember, we've said, number one, we need to maintain the tense. So we are going to see active and passive voice in different tenses. And in our lesson today, we are going to see in 8 tenses. Number one, we are going to start with sentences in present simple tense. And the example is, Ahmed kicks the ball. Ahmed kicks the ball. When changing into passive voice, remember, we have to add the helping verb either am, is, or are. We add the helping verbs am, is, or are. So Ahmed kicks the ball. Ahmed is our subject. Kicks is our verb. The ball is our object. Into passive voice, we give more emphasis to the object. So our sentence will be, the ball is kicked by Ahmed. The ball is kicked by Ahmed. The second tense, we have the present continuous tense. And talking about the present continuous tense, this is the progressive tense, where we have the addition of ing to the main verb. But remember, class, when changing into passive voice, our main verb has to be changed into present participle. So, example in a sentence, Ahmed is kicking the ball. Ahmed is kicking the ball. When you're changing into passive voice, remember we need to maintain the tense. Our sentence is in present continuous. So we are going to have the helping verbs am, is, or are, and then together with being. So our sentence will be, the ball is being kicked by Ahmed. Tense number 3, this is the present perfect tense. And under present perfect tense, when changing into passive voice, we use the helping verbs has or have together with being. Remember, in continuous we use being. In perfect, we are using being. For example, Ahmed has kicked the ball. Ahmed has kicked the ball. Into passive voice, the ball has been kicked by Ahmed. Now let us look at the past tense. We have the past simple tense. And we have an example. Ahmed kicked the ball. Ahmed kicked the ball. When changing into passive voice, we use the helping verbs was or were. And our sentence will be, the ball was kicked by Ahmed. The second tense is the past continuous tense. And changing from active voice to passive voice in past continuous tense. Remember, we use the helping verbs was or were plus being, but remember, our main verb is supposed to be in past participle. For example, Ahmed was kicking the ball. Ahmed was kicking the ball. When you change into passive voice, the sentence will be, the ball was being kicked by Ahmed. The ball was being kicked by Ahmed. Past tense number 3, we have the past perfect tense. And when changing from active voice to passive voice, we use the helping verb had together with been, but remember, our main verb is supposed to be in past participle. For example, Ahmed had kicked the ball. Ahmed had kicked the ball. This sentence is in past perfect active. When you change into past perfect passive, our sentence will be, the ball had been kicked by Ahmed. The ball had been kicked by Ahmed. And finally, let's look at the future tense. Now, when talking about future tense, we usually use the helping verb will or shall. But remember, shall is used with the first person pronouns, that is I and we. And will is used with the second person pronoun and the third person pronoun. When forming passive voice in future simple tense, we use the helping verbs will or shall together with the helping verb be. But remember, our main verb is supposed to be in past participle. For example, in a sentence, Ahmed will kick the ball. Ahmed will kick the ball. When you change this into passive, the sentence will be, the ball will be kicked by Ahmed. The ball will be kicked by Ahmed. Our final tense is the future perfect tense. When forming passive in future perfect tense, we use the helping verbs will or shall together with have and been. For example, Ahmed will have kicked the ball. Ahmed will have kicked the ball. Into passive, the sentence will be, the ball will have been kicked by Ahmed. The ball will have been kicked by Ahmed. Something very important to note, the following pronouns are used in active voice. When you are changing into passive voice, they also change in the following way. I changes to me. He changes to him. She changes to her. We changes to us. And they changes to them. Now, for instance, I drove the car. I drove the car. I is our pronoun. I drove the car. So I is the subject, drove is the verb, the car is the object. So I drove the car. When you change into passive voice, the sentence will be, the car was driven by me. So I has changed to me. We have covered how to change sentences from active voice to passive voice in different tenses. Remember, the two key things. Number one, we need to maintain the tense. Number two, our main verb we change into past participle.